Luna just got real angry because she thinks it is a big deal because she's Uruguayan. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast of and for the people, the greatest football podcast on earth, Francamente. My name is Franca. I'm your host, and I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Are you ready to bias your football content? Let's go. Hello. Okay, y'all, we are coming to you live from the post-earthquake devastation that we have experienced. I don't even know how to go on about my day. Look, an earthquake happened. Okay? My first one ever. I live in North Jersey. Never in my life have I experienced, okay, an earthquake. And I don't even know how to start this episode, honestly, because, like, how do you go? I need a week to recover emotionally, okay, from the damage that was done to the tiles on the patio to the damage that was done to my heart and my brain and my dog. Okay, so here's how today went, because we got it. Like, you can't. There is no. This is one of those. It's the elephant in the room. It happened today. We got to talk about it. Woke up. Dawdled for a little bit, dilly-dallied as one might do. Hung out with my dog, got in the shower, nonchalantly. We were going to record this at some point in the morning. So I was like, I'll get my slow start to the day. Get out of the shower. Thing about me is that I like to hang out naked after I shower. Like, I like to make sure I'm dry, moisturized. I put on my face moisturizer, my body moisturizer. I just kind of hang out. All right. Like, it's just a thing about me. So whilst that was happening, the post shower kind of just chilling on the days when I can't, because obviously sometimes I have to shower and get out the door. The earth shakes. The whole house shakes. The earth shakes. My dog freaks out, runs around. She's like now terrified. I'm like, now I'm gonna have to run around naked. Okay, I run outside naked because everyone's running outside. It was like and it was several seconds. It wasn't no 5-second short thing. At first I was like, what happened? Are we getting bombed? I'm like, did I imagine this? Who do I tell? Because who's going to believe me? Like, in all of those in that whole moment where I'm sitting there naked while the earth is shaking around us. Okay. It was like a sitcom moment. So obviously then, you go right to the socials, you go right to the text chats and chains and whatever. And I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. Everyone felt it. It was felt. The radius was massive. New York City up to Connecticut. Shouts to my friends in Connecticut fighting the good fight. But I just cannot believe. So then our producer and bestie is a California girl. So I am literally texting her incessantly, like, please tell me how I'm supposed to go on about my day. What do I do now? Like, what do I do? I don't know. I genuinely, I'm still shooketh, literally, pun intended and pun not intended. Like, we had an earthquake in New Jersey. Look, my favorite thing then, after everyone freaked out and everyone figured out everyone was okay, my favorite thing is obviously that earthquake Twitter. New York City Twitter, North Jersey Twitter was just on fire. Like, if there's one thing about us collectively that I love so much, and us with an asterisk, right? Because restrictions do apply to that us. But one thing I love about us collectively is that we will never take not one thing seriously. Not one thing. And that is why you can pry Twitter from my cold, dead hands. Okay, because if there's one thing that's going to happen, if we're in the apocalypse, okay, if we're all experiencing collective trauma and broken patio tiles, okay? There's one thing about us is we're gonna all come together to fucking make fun of it on Twitter, and like you can pry it from my cold dead hands. One of my favorite tweets, well, the series of tweets about Eric Adams now sending like millions of police into the subways to like try to, shoot down the earthquake were my favorite. But then my close personal friend, Dígame Concejal, tweeted that, after he figured out everyone was safe and that it actually did happen, he was like, we have to ask ourselves, I'm paraphrasing, we have to ask ourselves the real question, right? Did DEI cause this? I'm coming off 2 days of being like, I was a literal keynote speaker at this event that was like massive. I was a literal celebrity in the DEI world. It was insane, right? I'm coming off those 2 days. So that, and one of my talks was called The State of DEI. So that is one of those like things where now I'm like, it's perfect for that discussion. That's where we've gotten to, where things are going to get blamed on DEI regardless. So I'm so, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know if we're gonna have another earthquake during this episode. Imagine if you know what, the universe said dawdle, because imagine if we were recording during the earthquake. Oh my god, but the content would have been amazing. If we had gotten that on video, like, oh my god. So that's the exciting haps. Before I even talked about the kit, I just had to talk about, what's going on, because I don't even know where we go from here, honestly. I think that I need about a week vacation to deal with the devastation of what has happened. Speaking of kits, I'm wearing a really gorgeous, today is a historical day. Like, I'm wearing a gorgeous kit, black on black, black on black. This is the commemorative Borussia Mönchengladbach commemorative kit that came out in 2020 to celebrate their what anniversary? 1900 to 2020, whatever that aims, 120 years, right? And I camped out online for this kit because it came out at like a ridiculous time, because they're, which I love this, their website is all in German. They don't have an English version, or it was at that time. And I remember it was like peak COVID season. We were all home anyway, and I was like, I'm gonna like splurge on this kit. I had just announced that I had become a fan of this team. I've been a fan since birth. I'm around 4 years old. And so this kit came out. I camped out. It was like, it took hours for it to actually work and for like me to even be able to get through, blah, blah, whatever. But it was worth it. It was worth it. It's numbered. There's like it's a very limited edition. And they brought back the old logos and all of the everything, even the Puma logo, even the Bundesliga patch, okay, which is on this side. The Puma logo, everything's black. It's black on black, and there's a little bit of white. And on the back, it says in the gorgeous font, it says Borussia. And I'm obsessed with this kit. I wear it. It's like athleisure. It's like fancy. It's like my fancy kit. It's a going out kit. And I love it so, so much. So if you're not watching on YouTube, get over there. So I don't even know how to segue from earthquake. The segue is that I hate that all of this earthquake talk is giving any sort of clout to the team. I'm kidding. That was just a little moment. Okay. So I think that because of the fact that I have been thankfully like just nonstop go busy doing so many millions of things, I haven't really watched too much. I do know that my team fucking capitulated to Chelsea yesterday, and I hate that. The title race is heated for the first time in a very, very, very long time in Prem. And obviously there's one team out of those three that I want to win, and it's Arsenal, and like, it is what it is. At least there's a Uruguayan in Liverpool. I really don't want it to be City. But today I think we're going to talk about some World Cup history. because I realized that this is one of those things, like some of the kits that are my favorites, like this one that I thought I would have worn in my first year of the podcast, but didn't. Um, this is a topic that I've talked about on other people's podcasts and in other spaces, classes, academic, all that stuff, publishing, but never on the greatest football podcast on earth, which is this one. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of World Cup history, starting with, because we forget, right? We forget. And I get that I'm insufferable in the sexiest way possible. Obviously, I'm insufferable. And we're always, talking about Uruguay and Argentina for obvious reasons. I'm not apologizing for being from the single two greatest countries on earth. Like that, imagine apologizing for that. No way. But I do know that sometimes I think I'm like, oh, maybe I should talk about other countries. And then I'm like, why would I? No, never. So, but with that said, we forget with all that stuff, facetious stuff, right? That that there is a history here that is heavy, and that people who know sports all over the world, people who know football all over the world, give Uruguay the flowers that we are due. And people who don't know shit, just talk shit because they're jealous, right? And envious, and they'll say stuff like, oh, it's like ancient history. Let's not forget that history is the thing. Knowing and acknowledging history is the thing that keeps those of us that care about social justice, that keeps the world going, right? Is knowing history so that we can learn from it, whether that's to avoid certain things, which we're doing a really terrible job at avoiding, like fascism, for example, or whether it is to celebrate and honor, right? So history is super important. And all those people are wrong too when they say about Uruguay, like, oh, historically, because they're tied with Argentina on how many Copa Americas they have won. And they just won one fairly recently. So it's envy. I know it's envy, and I shouldn't even waste my breath on those losers who tend to be from countries, by the way, that have never won shit. Never won shit. But I digress. Let's talk a little bit of World Cup history. I want to talk about the first World Cup ever, and then I want to talk about the 1978 World Cup as it pertains to narratives around World Cups. Okay, which the 1978 World Cup we talked about a little bit in a prior episode, which is one of my favorite episodes still. And we just had the Dia de la Memoria, which was the day to commemorate the dictatorship. The hashtag is Nunca Más, never again. So to commemorate the victims of the dictatorship. And we've talked about in a couple episodes in the early days about the connections of football with dictatorship and all of that stuff, right? So that's what we'll focus on today. We're gonna take a break from talking about current things to give a little bit of that essence of what Real Francamente is, that we haven't gone down the path in a few episodes. So I want to start with talking about the Uruguay World Cup win and first host. So Uruguay was the first country to ever host the World Cup in 1930. And they won that World Cup. And before that, in 1924 and 1928, and here's the connection to current stuff because the Olympics are coming. And before 1930, where there was no official World Cup, Uruguay had won the 1924 and the 1928 Olympics soccer, football championship, right? Which at that point was the closest thing to a World Cup that we had. Nothing else existed. And so FIFA themselves commemorates those two championships with the stars on the jersey. So Uruguay has won 2 official World Cups, 1930 and 1960, but they have 4 stars on our jersey because of the 1924 and the 1928 Olympics. Now, people, again, ignorant assholes will say things like, oh, well, that's not real, whatever. It's like, listen, Reminder that FIFA is the most corrupt organization on the planet. But for that, for them to sanction, okay, those two Olympics wins to allow, because nothing, FIFA is the most corrupt organization on the planet. Nothing happens without their blessing. Nothing, no confederation, no team, no national team can do anything without the permission of FIFA, which is a bad thing. Okay. But in this case, what that speaks to is the fact that it is 100% sanctioned by FIFA, right? That they have 4 stars on their jerseys and they're legit. It was the 2024 World Cup and the 2024 and the 1924 Olympics and the 1928 Olympics. We're about to actually have that 100-year anniversary now that it is 2024. And Uruguay released some incredible kits for it. I'm obsessed with those kits. Uruguay has not released an amazing kit in a while. I'll also pause here to say that Uruguay is having some shirt drama with who is going to be the manufacturer. So obviously it's been Puma since Nam. But Puma kits are ugly. So they had been for years now, they've been like going back and forth. Is it going to be Nike? Is it going to be this? Are they going to change? Are they not gonna? So it got to such a point where they didn't renew their Puma contract because it was bad. And they played a couple games with no manufacturer. Like they had no man. I was like, this is sick. I'm like, this is base. Let's keep it this way. There were rumors that Uruguay was going to be their own manufacturer for a while, but that didn't come to fruition. So in these next few days, we should figure out who's going to be the manufacturer. I really hope they don't stick with Puma after all that drama. So then 1930 comes. And FIFA, starts to exist and starts to like be like money hungry assholes that they are. And they decide that the place to host the World Cup, because Uruguay has just been the reigning champions of the world in the 1920s, to host it there. The Estadio Centenario is built. It's gorgeous at the time, and it has not been touched since. So we're pretty close to the 100-year anniversary, and that bitch still looks like it's from 1930, okay? Shit's falling apart. I mean, it's a mess. It's great, and it's great. There's a museum there. It's gorgeous. I love the Estadio Centenario. So the World Cup is played, teams come from all over, blah, blah, whatever. They play, Uruguay wins. It's an incredible feat, okay? That in a world rooted in colonialism and slavery and capitalism and imperialism, okay? A country with a population of 3 million and some change is on the map and in the history books for having hosted and won the first World Cup ever. You can't talk to me. You can't tell me nothing, okay? When you're not from the country that hosted and won the first World Cup ever, like, these arrogant assholes, the same ones that are out here like, oh, that's nothing, blah, 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 that know nothing about the sport, are the same ones that if it had been their country, they would never shut the fuck up about it. And because Uruguayans are pessimistic, a lot of us tend to just not even like, they're just like, yeah, no big deal, right? Luna just got real angry because she thinks it is a big deal because she's Uruguayan. But the same arrogant assholes, and it's like the pessimism thing, and like just in general, Uruguayans are like humble. They, like when we talk about it, it's just like a fact. It's not like no one ever like, I am not like that because was born in Argentina, so I have the arrogant side from there. So I will rub it in your face all day, okay? That I am from the country that hosted and won the first World Cup ever in 1930. Okay. You can't tell me nothing. You can't take that away from us. You can't do shit. So, yeah. So we're vibing. We're vibing. So again, incredible scenes from 1930. So then, the World Cup's hosted in different places. We get to 1950. The World Cup is hosted in Brazil in the Maracanã. And the stage is set for Brazil to win it. I mean, they have gone to lengths to make sure that Brazil wins that World Cup. And here comes little Uruguay. If there's one thing we gonna do, it's take down a front runner. Little old Uruguay. And so in 1950, they had their second win. They call it the Maracana. So there's been all sorts of stories, movies, like stuff about this. Like look it up if you haven't seen any of it. I mean, it was bad. The way Brazil reacted was bad to the point where players from that generation who played in the 1950 World Cup, okay, up to their last days, and those who are still around, and are, I think there might be one or two left that still played in that World Cup. They even felt guilty. They didn't celebrate, right? Because it was like a heartbreaking thing. I mean, some folks even like unalive themselves who were at the stadium because they just couldn't believe, they had the whole thing set up, the carnival like celebration, so much stuff that was just like snatched away by us. But don't worry, Brazil got their vengeance because Brazil is the winningest team in the history of the World Cup. To the point where they were coming up with a fun design in the last World Cup. If they won their sixth, where would they put that star? Because their badge is already so overcrowded. So, and I love that kind of thing because if there's one thing about me, is that I am a pan-Latino activist and advocate. Okay, I'm a pan-Latino advocate. So if we're talking about South America supremacy, which we do all of the time and should do more of, there are 8 countries that have won the World Cup. Out of every country in the world, 8 have won the World Cup. 3 of them are in South America. And 2 of them I'm a citizen of, but, that's just no big deal. 8 of them have won the World Cup. 3 of them are in South America. Against all odds, against colonization, against imperialism, karma, the universe knows, okay, what's what, and they did not let Europe have the glory there. And when European teams win, I think out of the European teams that have won it, Italy is the winningest of like sheer number of them, or maybe it's Germany. I forget. But then you've got countries like Spain and France that have won it once, twice. England has won it once. So it is not normal. Argentina has now our 3 stars, right? It is not normal for European teams, with 1 or 2 exceptions, to win it multiple times, like the South American teams that, against all odds and against colonization and imperialism, have won those World Cups in y'all's face. And by the way, they normally aren't hosted in South America. They're normally not hosted in the global South. Okay. And even then, South America is going to win every time. So like, you can't tell me nothing. Don't talk to me. On that note, we're going to go to break and we'll be right back.
Hey, make sure to follow and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. And help us out by leaving a rating and review, and remember to share it with a friend. Don't forget to follow Franca on Twitter and Instagram at Francamente for the latest news. And lastly, please visit realfrancamente.com for bonus content, including articles, photos, and for more information about the podcast.
Hello, we are back on this episode of Insufferable. We're talking about South American supremacy in the form of World Cup history. And we've talked about Uruguay, we've talked about Brazil, we talked about Argentina a little bit. And I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about the corruption with the World Cup, right? And so it's interesting. It's interesting because I think that people have a really skewed idea of justice. And they will say, like, oh, here's an example, right? Oh, Qatar World Cup, right? This is, or Russia, right? This is disgusting. How dare we? Human rights violations, awful. Look at these poor countries, these, these not poor in the case of Qatar, but these, like brown and whatever countries being just so inhumane and they don't have human rights and they don't believe in human rights. Sir, ma'am, might I introduce you to the biggest terrorist country, home terrorists against their own people and also abroad in the entirety of the world, the authors of the worst human rights violations in the history of the world, and the next hosts of the World Cup, the United States. Have you ever heard of that place? Because those of you that are sitting in your privileged little bubbles, looking down on other places without having a single ounce of capacity, of capability, okay, to do any sort of fundamental and foundational and deep analysis of what imperialism is, okay, need to shut the fuck up forever. Because how dare you sit in your little privileged bubble without a single thought in your brain? No thoughts, just vibes, not even vibes because y'all are ugly, okay? I have entered the zone. No thoughts, okay, and sit there and act superior to these places when on your land you've got people being held in cages. You've got women losing our very, very basic rights. Reproductive justice is a disaster. You've got folks dismantling true history departments in the form of African American history departments, in the form of any sort of thing that resembles diversity. We've now all seen, I mentioned the DEI tweet earlier. The backlash against DEI and woke is literally just they're replacing the N-word with DEI and using it as a noun and as an adjective in that way. Disgustingly. If you haven't seen this, look it up too. I have tons of examples. So you live in that raggedy ass fucking country. And not only do you live in this raggedy ass fucking country, but you claim it and you love it. And you have your little patriotic bullshit going on. And then you're judging other places. Please sit the fuck down forever. Please sit the fuck down forever. So also read a history book about the World Cup, okay? Yes, Qatar should never have gotten the World Cup. Never in a million years. For starters, the season change was disgusting. The World Cup takes place in the summer, and that's it. Qatar bought their way in. It's obvious. They bribed FIFA. We all saw it. Qatar has serious human rights violations happening on their land. Guess who they're best buddies with? The US, the creators of human rights violations. Okay, so before we have that discussion, you're going to sit down for a little history lesson for starters, okay? And the second little history lesson we're going to do is the fact that if you think that it started with Russia or that it started with Qatar, the history of giving corrupt hosts World Cups, you clearly are also showing your ignorance and your privilege. Because let's talk about the 1978 World Cup, which happened during the brutal, fascist, repressive, right-wing CIA ordered and backed dictatorship under Operation Condor that at that time, in addition to many other countries, was affecting Argentina the most in terms of sheer numbers of disappeared folks, okay? That's what was going on in 1978. And FIFA said, hey, let's help y'all whiten your image. Let's help y'all whitewash your image. Y'all can host the World Cup. You know where games were played in that World Cup? Down the street from the torture chambers, from the illegal prisons where people were held, tortured, blindfolded, okay? And there's nuance here in terms of folks who are in prison celebrating that World Cup win. And so there is nuance in terms of understanding that it's okay to celebrate that World Cup and also always be calling out these injustices, because football can bring us joy sometimes and we can hold two truths at the same time. That's called dialectical materialism. Okay, look it up. So 1978 World Cup is given to Argentina under corrupt, ways, because they're like, oh, we're gonna help you whitewash your image. You're gonna just like talk about this World Cup. But Argentina won the World Cup. For years, all that appeared in history books about Argentina and the World Cup, and about Argentina in history, was that they won the World Cup. Nothing about the dictatorship, nothing about disappearances, nothing of that sort. So that was 1978. Some of the most horrific human rights violations in history, okay, is what was happening at the same time that Argentina won that World Cup. This has been the story in Latin America and in many places, like with whitewashing through football. Chile has had examples, even though Chile hasn't won shit. They won those two little asterisk Copa Americas. But there was a really amazing Chilean, Jean Baudejor, whom I don't know if he was maybe condemned after this, because I didn't see anything about him since. But one of those sham Copa Americas that Chile won, he said that at that stadium where they were literally standing, he was like, it's great to bring a joy. I'm paraphrasing. It's great to bring joy to folks who have only known suffering, especially in this, stadium where it was literally used as the place where they were capturing and torturing people during the dictatorship during Pinochet. Those are all US backed and ordered dictatorships. So Qatar, Russia, okay, the slave labor in Brazil, when the Brazil World Cup was hosted, like the slave labor in South Africa to build stadia, that is FIFA. That is the norm. That's the history. Okay, once we start to get into like the capitalist space and like the imperialist space. So how dare you then moralize about just one country versus another, and then not recognize how corrupt it is that the US gets to host it, co-hosted with Canada and Mexico, but they are always erased from the narrative, because the US, if there's one thing USians are going to do, it's center themselves and their ugly ass fucking little Captain America. Okay, that's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do. We're over it. So let's not act. Again, let's not be fucking hypocrites. Okay. One of my favorite episodes, despite the hardships of it, of the recording of it, is the Don't Talk to Me episode, when we learned that Jersey is going to host the World Cup final, because within the US, Jersey is literally the greatest country in the world. So I hate this country. I love motherfucking New Jersey. If there's one thing about me, that's it. I contain multitudes. Okay. All with that said, there is always going to be criticism. I am glad it's in Jersey for accessibility purposes for me, but that World Cup should not be hosted here. And so it's a disaster. And so we need to make sure we're being consistent when we're calling out the corruption of FIFA, of where the World Cup is hosted, of these countries that we just will gladly trash as if ours was any better, as if ours didn't have women dying from lack of access to abortions, as if ours had any sort of social and human rights where people felt comfortable existing as their authentic selves. We don't. We're backsliding. we're backsliding, and I'm not even going to say into fascism, because this has been a fascist country since its inception. It was founded on genocide and slavery. Okay, so we're not backsliding into fascism, we're there, but the backslide into like that kind of just like overt fascism, it's disgusting. If you're not calling it out, you're complicit. We're all complicit in genocide in Palestine, okay? And that is the thing that I will never stop talking about. So how dare you live in this raggedy ass fucking country of terrorists, okay? And then go out there and you know, and act like you're so moral, so much better than everyone else. Fuck off. That's what this turned into. So So I'm really glad, actually, that we decided to do a World Cup episode, because we need a little pause and we need a little reminder that the U.S. fucking sucks, that U.S. stands suck, and that we are out here fighting the good fight, and there's more of us than y'all think. Shouts to my new comrade buddy, if you're listening, whom I met in Pennsylvania, head coach of a men's community college team. Okay, shouts to you. And we're out here, okay? We're comrades for real, like real people, like doing this anti-imperialist analysis. Like, we're out there. And I don't say names for safety because I know people come for us, okay, if we say certain words. So but I'm loving creating this space. I don't care if we have 2 listeners. I don't care if we have none. When someone finds this podcast and it makes a difference and it resonates with them, that is all. That is, you couldn't pay me to have the kind of podcast that would be, you know, like catering to the masses of idiots, because what would I be doing then? So, moment of gratitude to the universe and to everyone who makes this podcast go round. I love y'all so much. On that note, see you in 2 weeks. And that was another episode of Real Francamente. Thank you so much for listening. I am obsessed with y'all. Please share with your like-minded friends. Follow us on socials at Real Francamente. Leave likes, comments. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on YouTube. Leave comments, ratings, and reviews there if you love us only. Join the Discord. Check out our website for more content, www.realfrancamente.com. We'll catch you on the next one. And as always, bias your football content.